Genesis House and the Friends in Recovery podcast are proud to bring you Answering the Call, the First Responder podcast. Join your hosts, Mike the Podfather and Jersey Ed, as they address the real issues in health and wellness for first responders. From physical and mental health to relationships and work-life balance, we leave no stone unturned. Answering the Call, the First Responder podcast is available on Facebook, Podbean, iTunes, and YouTube, as well as iHeartRadio. 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Now, here are your friends in recovery answering the calls.
Hey everybody, welcome to Answering the Call, the First Responders podcast. I am the Podfather, Mike Miles, and I'm here with the
Skylar, and it's noontime.
Skylar at noontime. It's a little past noon, but it's always noontime with Skylar, which is really good. So how are you, Skylar?
I'm doing pretty good.
Yeah,
pretty good.
You're filling some big shoes.
Yeah, the Reform Thug, Ed.
Yeah, the Reform Thug Ed from Jersey Ed.
Yes.
I nicknamed him Jersey Ed because I don't know, just all my life I've liked comedy and I've watched comedians and they've always depicted people from Jersey as being thugs and tough and they're thugs in New York and they go live in New Jersey, you know?
Yes, exactly. See, I'm down near Philly, so I got like the Philly with the beards. I got,
Philly too. Have you ever heard of the Mamas in Philly?
No.
Parade? No. I guess they were like a group.
Oh, the Mummers Parade. Yes,
Mamas,
yes.
Yeah, I'm not saying it right. Yeah. Mamas, yeah. So I was in the Army with a kid. I was stationed at Fort Dix, New Jersey with in Kuchel, and he was a mama. Is that what they call it? The Mamas Parade?
Mummers Parade, yep.
So he was part of that organization, and I had no idea what he was talking about, People said I had an accent. Well, Philly people have big accents.
Yeah, we do. Water crayons, crowns.
Yeah,
Water, yes. Water.
Good stuff. So how's everything going with you?
Good. I am going to read the good stuff that we need to be reading, so that way everybody knows how to get a hold of us.
Yeah.
So we have copline.org. And you can also dial 800 at Copline, which is 800-267-5463. We have the Friends in Recovery Community of Support Facebook. We have a Friends in Recovery Answering the Call First Responders Facebook page. And then we also have a Friends in Recovery Community of Support group on Facebook as well. And then we have this awesome sponsor, FirstNet, built by AT&T.
Yeah, and they're fabulous. I love the promo in the beginning of any of the podcasts. The commercials that's put together so well. And we actually had a guy, an EMS gentleman on last week our last show who uses FirstNet built by AT&T.
Oh, nice.
Just the importance of it. It's just kind of amazing, and it's a real honor to be able to be sponsored and even to have them in any part.
It really is super cool. I mean, like I said, before, you guys have been building up this podcast for the last 2 years and you've stuck with it. Consistency was key. And then look where you're at now.
It's amazing, and this Answering the Call podcast, we try to touch base with police, fire, EMS, corrections, veterans, anybody that's a public servant. And as we all know, the Podfather, myself, I was a police officer for 35 years in the city of Lowell, Massachusetts. And I retired in 2015. And I was a correctional officer for a short time, 14 months. And I was also in the U.S. Army Military Police School for 3 years, So I've kind of been around, law enforcement most of my life. And I've worked with firefighters and correction officers and veterans. And obviously I have a real soft place in my heart for vets.
Yes.
I see any vet pro bono. I don't charge them. I try to help them.
That's awesome.
Well, it's good, because I've just seen the high rate of suicide with veterans is just astronomical and heartbreaking. And, Vietnam vets. I'm a Vietnam era vet. I didn't go to Vietnam. I joined the Army in 72. The war was over in 73. But I went to Germany. I helped bring home vets. And being an MP, I was in a lot of skirmishes, as they say, as a young kid, but I really have a soft spot in my heart for veterans, and
My grandfather, he was in the Navy in World War II,
uh,
and he fell overboard during the war, and he was paralyzed from the neck down. Then he had a surgery, and he was able to walk. But it started with a cane, then a walker, and then a wheelchair, and then he was really not mobile. It was like a lot of dead weight. Um, but seeing what he went through and what he lost for serving his country, I mean, it had to have come at a price. And I was so young at the time. I wish I knew more
right,
at the time, you know what I mean?
right, and you just realize that my dad was a World War II vet, and you know, there's a new book out called Spearhead. It was written by a gentleman. Um, and it was a tank division, the Third Armored Tank Division. The Spearhead unit was obviously what it says Spearhead. They were the first ones to go in, and they had the most casualties of any unit in World War II. And my dad was in all these big battles, Battle of the Bulge, Normandy, all these. But he never talked about it till the end.
Yes, no, same with my grandfather. Never talked. Even the tattoo he had on an arm that he got in Navy, I don't even. His skin was so wrinkled. I don't even know what the hell it was, but he never talked about any of it.
What's funny is that's why I never got a tattoo, because I'm 66 now, but I was always afraid it's going to get wrinkly and you won't be able to read it, so I'm not going to get it. All my kids have tats. I love them. I don't care how many they get. My daughters, my son, I love it. But
With age.
yeah. But
What do like, I know sometimes the insurance with vets can be an issue. Like finding help with vets can be hard because
it's difficult.
yeah. So where do they usually go for treatment and stuff?
They can go to the Veterans Administration, and
Okay.
I got to say, and I'm not trying to be political here, but this president that's currently on his way out, he did an awful lot for vets. He really, really took vets seriously, and he did an awful lot in these past 4 years. And I know for a fact, because I'm a vet and I
Mhm.
don't get any benefits. I don't look for benefits because I don't need benefits. I'm fortunate, but they they're in a lot better position than they were 4 years ago. They've been forgotten, and it's so sad. And all
Yeah.
the World War II vets now, there might be a handful left because the war ended in 45. I mean,
Yeah.
there might be a handful left, but unfortunately, they didn't get the things they should have got. My dad was a Purple Heart vet. He never got any benefits. And I asked
No.
him one time when he was in his 80s, I said, Dad, you never got benefits? He goes, Mickey, called me Mickey. He goes, Mickey, the real heroes are over there. He said, I never wanted anything, just to come home with all my limbs and my mind. And he
Yeah.
came home. And yeah, it was just amazing. But I have a lot of respect for people that are in public service, because it's a very difficult job. Ed and I always talk about cops, and he was, cops and robbers. I was the cop, he was the robber, whatever. But Ed does an awful lot for people too that are vets, and everybody on this answering the call. And FirstNet, built by AT&T, is just astronomical. Just a great service, and it's like first of its kind, and it's going to be so useful in the event of anything tragic, because
Mhm.
it offers so much. But yeah, it does an awful lot, and he always asks me to tell stories from the field, and on my way here today, I was thinking of a few, so I'm just going to start with one. But before we start, you've given out the numbers and everything, right?
What's that?
You gave out the numbers, right? All the numbers.
Yes, I did.
Yep, the cop number and everything. All right. So I wasn't sure. My mind's not what it should be sometimes. So yeah, years ago, I drove the police wagon, Skylar, and that meant that if you got arrested in Lowell, and I worked from 4 to 12, 4 at night to 12 in the morning, and I did that for 28 years. Not the wagon, but that shift. But when I was in graduate school, I drove the wagon, and basically they used to call it the paddy wagon, but
Mhm.
now it's politically correct. We call it the police wagon. And I'd pick up in the 80s, early 90s, I'd pick up an average of 15, 16 people in an 8-hour shift.
Oh, wow.
And it was difficult because a lot of these people were, drunk, high, combative. Nobody got in there that was in a good mood. Nobody got out and wanted to pat me on the back.
Yeah.
So, so you end up rolling around with people and stuff. But there was this girl I used to pick up. She was 19, and she was out there for, she'd be being picked up for prostitution. And she was a young girl, very, very vibrant, very attractive, very smart too. And I found out years later she was the valedictorian of her graduating class.
Mm.
Got out of high school, met a kid a little bit older than her, got hooked on heroin. Well, the two of them got hooked on heroin, and she started prostituting for the heroin and to keep him high too.
Hmm.
She came from a very good family. Her father owned a construction company a couple towns over, and I just remember picking her up, and I had a daughter her similar age, and I remember asking her, I had been in recovery for maybe 10 years, I guess. And I had asked her, are you having fun out there? You still having fun? When are you ready? You want to get help? And she would just say, what are you talking about? There's no help. There's no help. And I said, no, I can help you. And the one night I picked her up, she told me that she decided she wanted help. So I went through her file upstairs. I called her parents and I told the mother to meet me at the court the next day. And because she had to be arraigned in court for the charge. And with the help of this judge, wonderful judge, Judge Neil Walker, I'll say his name. I hope someday he can watch this, because people look at judges, I don't think they realize what they have to do. The law is the law, but they also don't realize what they can do. So
Hmm.
she got processed, and her arraignment went early, before we even got there, and she was being sent to a woman's prison. So by the time her mother and I communicated and I went into probation, I found out she's on her way to a woman's prison. I'm like, oh my God. So I waited for the judge. I'd never asked to see him or anything. He knew who I was. And I went in and I told him about this girl. And I said, I think she wants help. And he could have just said, hey, too bad. But he brought her back the next day. She went into a treatment facility in Tewksbury, Mass. And she stayed there. And I didn't see her that was it. And I didn't know whether she'd made it or didn't make it. And about 2 years later, I was doing a detail directing traffic outside a supermarket. And I see this very attractive girl with sunglasses and a baby seat, and she's waving to me. And I'm like, she must think I'm somebody else, because you have a uniform on and, you might all look alike.
Yeah,
And
right.
pulled up and she said, hey, it's me. It's Mike. It's Marlo. My heart just flipped, and she pulled over, and here I am, we're both crying, like we're shedding tears. I get emotional talking about it. She
Yeah.
looked like a different person. She has a baby, and she's like, my life is so good today. Thank you so much. And, if you ever see the judge, thank him. And, that's a story that I'm sure it happens in many places. And, I've only shared that with a few people now, a lot of people, but I think it's important, because cops just aren't out there, beating people up or harassing them. There's a lot of police officers that go above and beyond, and as somebody who was an addict recovering and stuff, when I drove that wagon, I saw life on a different level, and I helped a lot of people that got in that wagon. I took them to detox. I told them about recovery, and, it was kind of I was put in that place, I really feel, to get my degree, but I was also there for a reason, and
Hmm.
I made the best out of it. And it's kind of a good story.
Yeah, and it helps break that stigma, because a lot of people have an issue with cops, right? And
Right.
especially with a lot of things going on right now with different things, and police brutality,
Yeah, yeah.
and different stuff going on. But there are still people with good hearts out there,
Well,
and
absolutely.
you break that stigma by telling us that story.
Right. Well, I think it's important to know too is, in recent, months, they talk about bringing social workers in, and, I am a social worker. I have a degree in social work,
Hmm.
which is very difficult to get. It's a lot of work, but
Yes.
I suggested it didn't really change my life. I was always kind of on that side. I grew up with a brother who had special needs, who was born in 1943. And, kids used to throw rocks at him and sticks. And, it was very heartbreaking. But we had that empathy in my family, the understanding. My mother was very generous to people that were down and out, especially special needs people and stuff. And my brother ended up in the hospital, and we'd go visit him every Sunday. All of us would pile in the car and we'd take him out on a picnic lunch. And he eventually got into a school, and that's where he lived. And he went to Disney. And, if he had been,
Oh,
yeah, it was cool. If he had been born now, if he had been born right now, I mean, he would have been fine. They would have been able to do the operation, and he would have been fine. But back then they were limited. But, I've worked with cops that we'd go to houses around Christmas time. They wouldn't have a Christmas tree, no presents. The mother was a drug addict, the father, whatever, the boyfriend, and the kids had nothing. And, we'd go out to stores like that were open around Christmas Eve and buy gifts and bring them over and, buy meals and give out money. And, I can honestly tell you, there's a lot of cops that have social work in them. You have to be a social worker. Sometimes you got to be a medical technician.
Yeah, human service field.
Exactly, right.
There's a certain individual, and there's a certain individual for each field, right? My stepbrother is a firefighter, and we joke around. Growing up, we're going, oh, the hose whacker, but he has a certain love about him, and he's the same brother that came to court with me for my custody stuff, and he sat with me, and my other brothers really didn't know how to be there the same way he did. So there's just, everybody has their part, you know what I mean? And at the human service field, we need everybody. We need you. We need my brother. We need people like that can tap into areas other people can't.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So,
my kids growing up, their friends would, get speeding tickets or whatever, and they'd come to me, but they never took it for granted I'd do it. They had a harder time asking me than strangers did, especially my son, Chris. He'd be like, Dad, geez, I know I asked you once before, and I'm like, buddy, you don't have to, I'll help any way I can, that, but I hate bothering you, and with total strangers, someone I'd meet at a meeting or something would be wanting me to, change the world for them,
Can you get this ticket removed?
Yeah. But my kids never complained about me, the hours I worked, the overtime, the stigma of being a cop, because I wasn't the type of guy that I didn't make a lot of waves.
Exactly.
More or less to help people. I'm not saying I didn't have my moments when, things happen, but it's really a difficult job at best. And firefighters too, when they have to go into a burning building, and I've seen it.
Yes.
Talk about heroes. I mean, we get there as cops, we just stop the traffic and block it. There's been a few times when I had to go into a building because we were the first ones there. And those 1 or 2 experiences left me fearing for my life.
I can't imagine.
Exactly.
And my niece and nephew, I always think like, what does he think when he's going in there with my niece? But it's what he does. He doesn't think like that. It's just natural and it comes to him.
And you know what? When I see firemen that die, there was a couple in Boston that died a few years ago, and it was on Beacon Street. My daughter at the time was in college. That was her dorm. Her dorm was actually 3 buildings down on the same side of the street. And these 2 young firemen died, and unbelievable turnout for their funerals, and people come from all over the country. When cops die, it's the same thing because it's, it is. But then the media is right there. They're loving it. But as soon as there might be some newsworthy, events that a cop was involved in, it seems like they find him guilty before they even, before he's even been to court, and they jump on it and they paint this picture and they stir the public. And then you got all these riots and stuff. And to me, that's just really bothersome, and there are times when, a cop is dead wrong. He did something. He's going to go to jail the rest of his life. No cop's going to stick up for him either, but tough job.
That's true. That's true. We'll take a quick break here now. And then I liked that you were mentioning stuff about the community, the different ways the community got involved and stuff. So maybe we can touch on that a little bit more, the different ways. And then we'll come back. So take us out.
I certainly will. Answer the call. First Responders Podcast. We'll be right back.
You're first. First to respond. First to put others' lives before your own. And in an emergency, you need a network that puts you first. That connects you to technology, to each other, and to other agencies. Built with and for first responders. FirstNet, the only congressionally authorized wireless network for first responders. Because putting you first is our job.
Since 1992, Genesis House has been helping real people heal from addiction on their private recovery campus in beautiful Palm Beach County, Florida. Their family-owned program is accredited by the Joint Commission and offers detox and dual diagnosis treatment in a comfortable and confidential setting. At Genesis House, they focus on treating the underlying causes of addiction. Their comprehensive approach includes psychiatric care, individual and small group therapy, trauma healing techniques, and holistic care including yoga, massage, and animal-assisted therapy. After treatment, their clients enjoy the lifelong support of a nationwide network of Genesis House alumni. Call Genesis House today at 1-800-737-0000 0933 to speak with someone who understands. Visit them on the web at www.genesishouse.net. It's time to start your journey to a long and successful recovery.
Hey everybody, welcome back. Answering the Call, the First Responders Podcast. I am the Podfather, Mike Miles, and I am here with the knowledgeable and lovely
Skylar, and it's noontime.
Skylar, and it's noontime. We love this. This is good. This is good. You know, I miss Ed, but you make it a lot easier not missing him.
Well, I'm glad.
Oh,
I'm sure he's not.
And he needs a little time off, you know, even just one or two shows. I mean, he hasn't missed anything over the course of the 2.5 years we've been doing these, you know, and yeah, it's good. It's good. It's good.
Yeah.
Good. Knowing he's relaxing and taking it easy. Who knows what he's doing though, you know?
Right. So right before we broke, I just want to, we were talking about the community, different things, cop stories in the community, but I real quick want to read, the Answering the Call cop line. So there is a website, it's copline.org, or they have a phone number for support. It's 800-267-5463, which is 800 cop line spelled out. And then we also have the different Facebook pages, which is Friends in Recovery, Community of Support, and Answering the Call, First Responders Podcast. And what about Sober Pod? Have you ever heard of them?
Sober Pod. I heard of them. I'm having nightmares. That's all I hear.
And we have an awesome sponsor, FirstNet, built by AT&T.
Yes, and you can't say enough about FirstNet, built by AT&T. They are definitely, a brand new phenomenon. As far as I'm concerned, I've been a cop for so long that I was and everything. What an opportunity for all departments and first responders to have this opportunity to hook up with FirstNet, built by AT&T.
It brings the resources too for vets versus all, like, the resources that they need,
Absolutely. It's just it's amazing, and I don't even know how we got involved, but it's so nice to be involved. You know what I mean?
Yes,
it really is. It gives me pride. I got to say, it really does.
Yeah.
Being a cop for 35 years, an old man now, but I had a lot of experiences when there was power outages and for days, not hours, days, 3 days. Snow would take down lines and bad storms, floods. I've been through it all, and there were times when they wouldn't let us go home. You have to work 12 hours. No one's going home, no vacation, nobody's, it's almost like it's a paramilitary organization. So when they need you, you're going to be there, whether you want to be or not,
Yes.
So
I worked at Child Services for a short period of time, about a year or so. And when they were having a removal of children, you couldn't leave. And I'm like, Mom, can you pick up my son from daycare? Cause you couldn't leave, you had to handle it.
Well, I remember years ago, Arlene and we have my son, Chris, and I have an older daughter, Michelle. I was married when I was younger. She's from my first marriage, but Michelle's lived with us, and she's just as much a part of our family as Chris and my daughter, Kara, who's 27. But we were trying to conceive another child, and we were going to a fertility specialist. We couldn't understand it because, we had Chris.
Mm-hmm.
We tried for 2 years, and it just wasn't working out. And I was at work one night, and I was driving the police wagon again. I was in graduate school, and I was walking around checking the doors, make sure the facility was all safe. And a woman came in with 2 little boys. They were like 5 and 3, and they were, they were unkept. They weren't clean. They had dirty clothes on and dirty hands, but they were just adorable kids. And they were looking at the candy machine, the Coke machine. So I had a bunch of change in my desk out of the garage. I ran out and said, "You guys want some crackers? You want some sodas?" And they were taking everything. And the woman starts leaving, and I ran out, and she said, "No, I talked to the captain." And then the captain called me back. She was leaving. She was abandoning these 2 children. Yeah. And then the oldest boy realized what was going on, and he ran out after her, and she brought him back in. And she didn't have it. Her affect was just so flat, and years later I become a social worker. I know what affect is. I know how it looks.
Mm-hmm.
And but my heart was broken for these 2 boys, and they called Child and Family Services, and I had to stay with them till social workers got there. It took about 45 minutes.
Mhm.
I was just talking to them, trying to break up the sadness. But I got to be honest, it was so hard fighting back the emotions I had, you
Yeah.
know. And I ran out in the garage and I called my wife. I said, "Hey, look, if need be, I might have to bring 2 kids home, you know."
Yep.
Of course, she's not feeling the same thing I'm feeling. She's like, "What are you talking about?" I said, I don't know. I don't think I can leave here tonight.
No.
But
It's
yeah.
so hard, and you're right, because when people are on when people are dealing with mental illness, when people are dealing with substance abuse, that affect it, and you don't mean it. You don't mean it, because I've struggled with suicidal ideations and different things, and I become flat. It's like I don't feel anything, and it didn't matter. And that's the stuff I had to tap into in therapy and different stuff, because that's not really how I felt in the moment. It's how I felt, but it's not really who I was or how I felt.
And just a quick note on suicide or suicide ideation. I've said this before because I've been there. It's almost like a relief when you think about, well, I'll just kill myself. I mean, no more problems, it's like, wow, there's my oasis, and how crazy is that when you think about it? It's like, where is your mind at? And I think any person, given the right stances and whatever's going on in their lives, could be there. I really do.
Mhm.
And a lot of people might not admit it, and that's fine, but I've sat with hundreds of clients, and that's one of the questions on my 8-page questionnaire. So I have it on there twice. I have it plain out, and then I have it like almost as a disguise. But because it's so important, the last thing you want to do is lose a patient to suicide. I've lost 3 of them.
And you have to directly ask, which is really uncomfortable sometimes.
sure.
Are you currently feeling like you want to hurt yourself or someone else? And then if they say yes, well, do you have a plan? Like that's stuff you got to ask, and it's very uncomfortable.
Certainly. Yep. And God bless the honest people that do tell you, because then you don't have to worry. You work on it. I had a fireman who came to see me, and we got to be friends. I mean, not so much friends, but we knew a lot of the same people. I knew him as a kid before he was a fireman. He hugged me on a Tuesday. He was 30 days sober. Life was getting better. He had a restraining order on him, but he was about to have that dropped, and he hung himself Saturday.
Mm.
And it just killed me. I couldn't tell you how sad I was, and how I felt like I had failed to something, going to the
Yes.
stuff,
And it's not that at all. If you've ever been there, it has nothing to do with anyone else. You actually think like you're a burden to other people, and they'd be better off without you. It's strange. It's the weirdest thing that, because I've dealt with it in recovery. I mean, I've over 12 years clean, but there's been times when I was dealing with that custody court stuff.
Sure.
It was like I was either going to drink, and honestly, I always struggled with this worse, because I always think if with over 12 years, if I'm going to relapse, I'm just going to go out, because I'll be too embarrassed to say I got high, so it's like, and that's why mental health and medication, going to therapy, that's why it's all like a big piece that we all have to do together.
That's right. And people that are just out there sick and suffering, whether they're police, fire,
Yes.
EMS, correctional officers, veterans, nurses, paramedics, it doesn't matter. We have been there. We know what it's like. That's why we're here. We're not getting paid to do this. We're doing this because we want to get the message out. We're
and we know how it feels.
Right. And we're grateful not to feel that way now.
Exactly.
We have this attitude of gratitude where we want to help people. And that's why we do what we do. And that's why this podcast is so good, because I'll tell you, Sky, you're awesome. You're phenomenal. Melissa, Ed, Taylor, just everybody down there. It's just amazing. It gives me goosebumps even saying it.
Mm-hmm.
I joke with Ed all the time. All I do is bust his balls, and I do it just for fun, and he takes it so well. But man, I respect that guy so much, because I see the work he does. Him and Stacy do all the work.
My boyfriend's obsessed with him. Every time he shares in the Friends and Recovery meeting, he's always writing him. I'm like, I think you have a man crush on Ed. Might as well just ask him to sponsor you or something, like Jesus. Because he's always writing on there, like, that's a great share. He just can always identify with Ed on so many levels. Now, speaking of like being in the field, right? When you're in the field and you guys see something, what's like the debrief process? Like, do you guys have someone that helps you debrief? Or
that's a great question. Years ago, I started in 1980, January 7th, 1980. And, I've seen hangings, shootings, drownings, limbs being, I've seen some bad stuff. But my point is, we never did have debriefings. Our debriefings were across the street, 12:30, 2 cases of beer, a pint.
That was your debrief.
just getting loaded. Yeah. And then, and for me, like in 86, I started playing with, 84, I started playing with cocaine. That lasted about 2 years. I mean, that brought me to my knees a lot quicker. But that was the debriefing. Nowadays, yes, debriefing, diffusings, PTSD, the Jeffrey Mitchell model, how to diffuse, how to debrief. There's teams you can call, great teams. I was on a couple of teams, too busy now, but used to be. CISM teams, critical incident stress, excuse me, management. You can go in there and you can have peer helpers, people that work in the corrections
Oh
department.
yeah.
Yeah,
They get it.
exactly. And they go to the trainings, and they're not necessarily up your ass, so to speak, bothering you. But if you found an inmate hanging, whether you knew the person or it doesn't matter, you saw death. You may have your own problems. You probably do have your own problems, like everybody does. And then suicide. That's why a lot of people that commit suicide have been close to it.
Can't get that vision out of your head sometimes. I can only imagine.
Right. And so to answer your question, nowadays it's off the wall. I think there's plenty of help. And if you're out there listening and you don't agree with this, we have some numbers at the end of the podcast that you can call on the show notes as well. And you can call us anytime. And believe me, we're 24/7, 365.
Yeah. And you guys know places to refer them to for the debriefing. I worked at a rehab up here at Seabrook House. And, at the time I was doing alumni follow-up calls just like I do now. And there was a few times we called and we had heard about like someone that had passed away, or there was a crisis call where someone was on the phone with a plan. And afterwards we was debriefed, and I always thought like I didn't know what it was at first, but I was so grateful for it, because you don't realize how much, especially an empath, you take on those emotions, and it's a lot. It's heavy.
Right. And it's really good to be in a group where everybody can speak, and you learn that some guys are hot asses, or women, they don't want to talk about it. They think they're all set. And then once you start going around the room and you touch on everyone's going to speak, whether they want to or not. And what I like too is when they're forced to go there, like not forced, but they're ordered. You got to go. If you give people the option, they're just going to go about their merry way, a lot of them, But if they have to go sit in a room for 3 hours with everybody else that saw this horrific sight, and then eventually someone's going to ask them a question, and at least they get to speak about it. And those are the people that usually are holding it in, and they pour out the most too,
Exactly. So
Great
well,
question.
this was great though. I mean, I love that all this different stuff you had. And then there's just awesome, like the debriefing thing. I think it should definitely be required in some places, but I think they're working on that. And like you said, from where they came with the debriefing,
Big time.
exactly. So, but awesome. Well, this has been a great show. I will let me read the number out one more time real quick.
Yeah.
So we have our sponsor, that's FirstNet, built by AT&T. And then we have the Cop Line. So the website is copline.org. And the number is 800 Cop Line, which is 800-267-5463.
Super. And let me just give my number out too, because I've done this in the past. I'm up here in Massachusetts, but 978-746-1717. And that's the Mike Miles. Oh, the Podfather, and you can call me anytime. And I might not pick up the phone right then, but I guarantee you I'll get back to you within an hour. And we're here to help.
Exactly.
Right. Great job. I'm telling you, Sky, this has been a real pleasure doing this today.
Awesome. Thank you, Friends in Recovery, first responders.
Thank you so much. Answering the call, the First Responders podcast, and stay safe, everybody.
10-4 over and out.
10-4. I love you.